welcome, and thanks for letting me talk to you a little bit today about opportunities that you have selling your product outside of the United States. It's something that we've been working on for a couple of decades, and we have, in coordination with New York Wine and Grape Foundation, U.S. Department of Agriculture, New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets, and New York State Economic Development, we've got a lot of different ways that we can help you. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what exporting means, that it's not just outside of the state, but it's actually outside of the country. And that's where we focus our efforts. So we'll go ahead and get into the little presentation here. The New York State Department of Economic Development is the most export or outward-facing, foreign-facing agency within the state. Many of our other agencies have interactions outside of the country with parallel agencies. But when it comes to trade and business development, that is what we do. Go ahead to the next slide. So we have representatives in the regions around the state. There are 10 economic development regions that you may be familiar with. Since 2014, each of these economic development regions has been asked to create a plan for where the state and other types of investments will be to help create jobs. And so our team is primarily focused or primarily based in the New York City office. However, a couple of colleagues and I are out in the regions. You can see us down the left-hand column there. And from the capital region, Rochester, Buffalo, and Long Island regions, we cover multiple regions. So for example, for me, I cover the whole northeastern part of the state. We currently actually have 2 people in the Buffalo region, one in the Finger Lakes. Carrie Baker Scott is the most directly related person in that region. And then Loretta Bine, who helps cover the Long Island region. So for our 3 main growing regions, I'm in the Hudson Valley, Carrie's Finger Lakes, and Loretta is Long Island. And those are the where most of our wineries exist and across the state. Across the state, we're the 3rd largest exporter. If you go to the next slide, the 3rd largest exporter is distant 3rd, and the 3 through 10, number 3 through 10 exporters are very close. You can see the kinds of the numbers vary a little bit. Jen, do you want me to try to share my screen? Let me try this and see if this works a little bit better for us. Okay. All right, can everybody see this, I'm assuming? So you can see that Texas and California, really, especially with their commodities and with oil production and things like that, they're our major exporters. The rest of us kind of run distant 3rd through 10. In New York in particular, we have some high value, this is by dollar value. So we have some high value products that come out of the state in terms of jewelry, arts and antiquities. Optics and photonics is also very big in the, especially in the Rochester area, pharmaceutical products and aircraft parts. Because those are all high value products, they tend to skew our numbers. You obviously have to sell, a lot fewer things with higher value in order to hit those numbers. When you're selling food and beverage products, you have to sell a lot more volume to hit those big numbers. Our biggest trading partner has been, for years, has been Canada. China has been a new importer that's finally fallen off in the last couple of years. But Canada, to nobody's surprise, is our next nearest neighbor, and so also our biggest trading partner. Some of these other countries for exports, again, arts and antiquities, jewelry, Switzerland, Hong Kong. United Kingdom is actually a fairly decent market for a lot of our wineries, and Germany as well. So some of those numbers include exports of wine from New York. So we want to talk a little bit also about services. If you know anybody who's in the services industry, these are financial services or things that people provide, including consulting services. So if you ever have an opportunity to consult with a winery in another country, just so you know, that is an export as well for a winery that's outside of the country, and that might be something that we should explore together. For Global New York, we have offices in multiple countries around the world. You can see them here: Canada, Mexico. Europe is obviously a multi-country office. Israel, South Africa. Africa is also a multi-country office. India and China. And these are folks that we hire that are on the ground. They are not food and beverage specialists, but they are in the country and they can help provide some services for you through our office. Our three main products that we offer are the Export Marketing Assistance Program. And what that is market information, statistics, data, overall picture of what the culture, the business culture and things are like. And then we also offer the two grant programs. The Export Marketing Assistance Program will not connect you necessarily to direct buyers, but to importers or distributors or other partners who can help you maximize your efforts within that marketplace. This is offered at no cost to companies that are eligible. And to be eligible, you have to be a small business. You have to be producing a product where at least 51% of the value added happens within the state of New York, and that you are at least a year in business. The State Trade Expansion Program is funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration. In this case, you could use, for example, if you imported juice from another state, they're looking at U.S. content. So if you're, it doesn't necessarily have to be 100% New York product for this program. We are currently out of funds, but we're anticipating a new funding award starting in October for any activities that would be eligible. It's a 70% reimbursement of eligible expenses, and it can be used for activities such as trade shows, advertising, but also if you have to do any content analysis, if you want to travel to a show in another country or a domestic trade show. So for example, the big wine expo or the Restaurant Association show in Chicago, the big bar expo in Las Vegas, those are all potential eligible shows as well. They don't all have to be foreign. The Global New York Fund similarly provides support to similar kinds of companies. However, this one does have to be 51% New York again. New York content that's value added, not necessarily agricultural content. And those grants range from $7,500 to $25,000 at a 50% cash match. So again, small business, and again, a lot of marketing activities and market certification programs. So again, our economic development regions are here spread around the state, and that's where you can also approach if you're looking to expand or invest in your business and not having anything to do with exporting. You should locate yourself within your county and within your region and contact them for the consolidated funding applications or others, especially if you're going to expand and hire more people. Our whole agency is about job creation and job retention. And so in addition to the exporting activities, you can also approach your regional council, economic development council, for funding to expand your business. Other resources, we've had some COVID recovery funding available. If you're a minority or women-owned business, there is some certification and funding available. And again, the regional councils have just closed. However, they have also instituted other programs that have rolling application processes. So again, you should just reach out to them for any other assistance. For exporting, we do have other export partners. Food Export USA is funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Both of them have a lot of similar programs and services. Also, U.S. Department of Commerce or U.S. Commercial Service, and the Small Business Administration, Small Business Development Centers are found at most SUNY campuses across the state, and they can help with business planning, market planning, and locating other resources. So just to give you another opportunity to refresh your memory, if you haven't met your local representative already, again, in the northeastern part of the state, Loretta and Cary are in our other primary wine growing regions. And for Niagara, Niagara Escarpment, or anyone in Western New York, Mosambundo or Richard Ball are both available to you. So before we move into the next slide, I just want to double check here. If anybody has any questions at this point, otherwise we can move on to the next portion. Just pause for a moment.
Yeah, Kathryn, I did want to mention that if anyone thinks of a question they have, please feel free to put that in the Q&A section or even in the chat, whichever is easier for you. And if we don't get that to Kathryn right when you ask the question, we'll be sure that she addresses it before we finish up today.
Okay. All right, then I'll just move on to the next portion, which is our partners at Food Export.
Kathryn, we do have a quick question. Do you need to apply to EMAS to be able to apply for STEP?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that, Jen.
Do you need to apply to EMAS to be able to apply for STEP?
It is not required, but it is recommended. So the EMAS service will help companies make better use of the STEP grant funds, but it's not required to do both. Okay, I'm gonna just move on here. We actually have, I'm assuming that everybody can see that we have Food Export Northeast, which is a 10-state cooperative agreement based out of Philadelphia. Joe Ganley over at Ag and Markets and I help support their efforts. And we have a new liaison for New York named Logan. And he is fairly new to the organization, but he will be the primary contact for companies. Now, the trick with their programs is that because the New York Wine and Grape Foundation also receives funding from the same source that Food Export does, there are sometimes exemptions where if you are a New York State winery, you were not able to participate in some of their trade missions, buyers missions, and more generic wine promotional activities. However, you are still eligible to apply for their branded program funding. And if you have multiple products, so for example, if you have a wine-based sauce or dressing in addition to the wine, or you can get an exemption from the Wine and Grape Foundation, you might be eligible to participate. So with that caveat in mind, again, the members are not individual companies, but the members are for each of the 10 states in the Northeast. They often work with, they also work with the small and medium-sized producers, and their qualification is not value added within the state, but New York or US agricultural content that makes you eligible for their programs. You can see the states that are in the region: New England plus New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey. And they are one of 4 regional trade groups. We actually partner very closely and share an executive director with the Midwest Food Export Association. And the bonus to that is we get access from New York to all of their programs and activities as well as our own. So we really where all of that Northeast and Midwest region, all of their in-market representatives and all of their programming is available to New York, as well as all of the other states. The different kinds of programs that they run are primarily food, processed food or value-added products. And so they do a lot of specialty food and processed food promotional activities rather than the commodity-based. So there is a group similar to Wine and Grape Foundation that applies for funding for meats, for dairy, and then certain other commodity groups, confectionery, for example. But the Food Export Organization and their partners cover promotional activities for anything that doesn't fall into those other categories. So food ingredients, food service products, seafood. So the nice thing about all of these is that often, the wine and craft beverage products are complementary, and so they're very popular in all of these promotions. The funding does come from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the annual budgets are about $10 million a piece. So again, because we have access to both regions, we have essentially twice as much access to programming as other southern and western regions might have. In addition, they added this additional funding through 2024, and they released, if you've been familiar with the programs before, they released companies from caps of 5 years. It used to be that you only had funding available to you for 5 years by country, or at a trade show only up to 5 years. They've released us from that. And then they were able to put some funds toward developing new and different markets. So primarily the way that they classify the programs is education, promotion, education, market entry, and market promotion. So they have some really great resources on their website. In addition to those online learning, those webinars are all free, and they're very topical, and it's everything from how to set your pricing, how to act with foreign buyers, how to maintain your logistics, understanding freight and shipping terms. And then they also have very specific webinars and seminars on a lot of those topics if you prefer a more interactive learning experience. Just like we do for Empire State Development, they have in-market representatives found in many different countries around the world, but they are all food and beverage specialists. They've been oftentimes in the food and beverage, hospitality, retail business for at least a dozen years, and sometimes, a couple of decades. So they're really, really experienced, really well connected, and they have opportunities to run all kinds of different promotions, to recommend importers to come to different buyers' missions, and they act as the feet on the ground for companies in the United States for marketing and selling products in their country. So again, all of these webinars, export essentials, and seminars are all free. The Export Advisor Program is a selected, only 2 or 3 companies a year get selected to participate in this program. It's for companies that have done a little bit of exporting and really want to take it to the next level. And it's a one-on-one mentorship program with somebody who's been in the business for quite some time. The market entry programs includes the buyer's missions and trade missions. Food Show Plus is a service that they offer at a lot of foreign trade shows, where they will have translators on site, as well as the ability to translate your marketing materials into a foreign language. They will look through your leads from a show and make sure that you identify the ones that are the highest return potential. And then the market builder is very similar to our EMAS service, where they will provide market research and information about the country and the industry in general and about your product specifically. The market promotion is a grant program very similar to ours. It's a lot of the kinds of activities, trade shows, promotions, etc., involving travel to foreign markets. Domestic travel is not included, and a lot of similar kinds of activities as the STEP and Global New York Fund programs. The reimbursement levels are a little bit different. It is a 50% reimbursement, but there are some application and fees involved once you're approved to participate in the program. So your actual return ends up being more in the 42 to 44% range. Again, these are the kinds of eligible activities, and these are all photographs of, they happen to all be Brooklyn-based companies, and Arizona is no longer a New York company, but we like to remember them, where these products are actually found in China, Korea, Indonesia, and so, you know, it is very much possible to market and sell products outside of the country, even for some of the smaller companies. So just as an example, there's a company that does frozen meatballs out of Buffalo. If you're not familiar with them, they are a multi-generational family-owned business. They started as a local meat market, started processing and selling frozen products, and they have taken advantage of the program, the branded program, and changing the labels, because you have to change them into foreign language and change the metrics on them for a nutrition panel and things like that. They've participated in a number of different buyer's missions and trade missions. They did engage the market builder research, and then they also took advantage of the online product catalog, which is a free service, again, where you're able to upload images and product information, and that is often searched by importers that are qualified by our in-market representatives, and they have thus increased sales to all of the countries over here: Canada, Costa Rica, Mexico, and more. Crepini is another company that has taken advantage of the program. They used to do a crepe product, and with the low carb, no carb trend, they started doing these egg wraps that are gluten-free, high protein, and they actually moved from Brooklyn up to Fishkill, and they've participated with us in a number of different activities in China and Montreal, and in the Summer Fancy Food Show. They were able to use the branded program to subsidize their booth even at the domestic trade show. It's all on a reimbursement level. And then we also have some folks over here from the Southern Tier, Salamita, granola company, and then we did a trade mission to China specifically for craft beverages. We had another one specifically for wines. So we work very closely with a lot of different partners to try to promote not only wine, but all the other food and beverage products that come out of New York State. So just again, to remind you, here are your contacts. You can certainly call me anytime. Joe, if you run into him at any of the Taste New York events or State Fair. And then again, Logan is our food export liaison working out of Philadelphia. We're hoping to get him up into New York and tour around and give you an opportunity to meet him in person. They do have, of course, they're really good at social media. They've got Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn profiles. So they're a great one to follow because they really do a great job at highlighting their events as well as occasionally individual companies. So I would definitely recommend following them on social media if that's something that you do.